Welcome, everyone. We'll just get started in just a moment. Just let a couple of other people join in. Perfect. So we're right at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you so much for everyone joining our session today. This session is building an AI-powered chatbot using the AWS QnABot solution and integrating with AWS services like Amazon Connect and Amazon Kendra. So in our session today, our speakers are going to dive deep into several different customer use cases of the AWS QnABot solution for you to gain a deeper understanding of how AWS customers are using this solution to deliver better outcomes to their users. We have several AWS customers joining us today: AKQA, the Guide Dogs for the Blind Association, as well as Oklahoma State University, Oklahoma City. Each will run through their particular use cases of the Q&A chatbot solution to give you a better understanding of this particular application. We'll also cover other AWS services like Amazon Connect, Amazon Kendra, and also Amazon Lex. So I'd like to welcome, to kick us off today, Patty Keene, who's the Creative Research and Development Director with AKQA. So I'll hand it over to you, Patty, and thank you for joining us today for this session.
No problems. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Yes, so as Tyler said, I work for AKQA. We're a kind of global 6,500 strong group of technologists, strategists, creatives. We've even got architects, interior designers, product designers, so a whole eclectic list of clients. I'm not going to spend time talking about all the stuff we do, but if you go on to the next slide. Next one. Can we get the next slide, sorry? There we go. Back one, please. Hang on a sec, we'll get there in a minute. There we go. So yeah, rather than talking about everything we do, I thought I'd just distill into what our mission statement is, which is the imaginative application of arts and science to create a better future. So my team's called Creative Research and Development, and I'm tasked with researching emerging technologies, looking for opportunities and disruptors for our clients. So we look at everything from VR, AI, voice, chatbots, blockchain, electronics, websites, mobiles, and do rapid prototyping and investigation into those areas. It's important to understand that we don't invent technology as opposed to apply it. So that means we work quite closely with tech providers such as Amazon, to Apple, Facebook, IBM, Microsoft, etc. And we're looking for ways to put their tech out into the world in different creative ways, sometimes in ways they might not have thought of themselves. And that's kind of a snapshot of what we do as a company. But before diving deep into what we've done for the chatbot, I thought I'd explain the reason we're here, which was in 2019 now, Guide Dogs approached us looking for some of our help, and we thought this was a great opportunity to use some of our voice and chatbot skills to help them in a really meaningful and impactful way. And I'll get into the details in a moment, but first I thought I'd hand you over to Mari to talk a little bit about Guide Dogs, the head of digital.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Paddy. It's so lovely to be here today. Thanks for having us. So my name is Marie Orpin, and I'm the head of digital here at Guide Dogs in the UK. For 90 years now, Guide Dogs has been here to help people with sight loss live the life they choose. We work together with anybody affected by sight loss, children and adults, friends and family, to provide the skills and support that they need. We're known for our dogs, of course, it's in the name, and that is where we started, but we now do so much more. And the services that we provide are truly life-changing, and they help people to live actively. Our people and our dogs can help people living with sight loss get out and about with confidence, going wherever school, work or play takes them, and knowing that their sight loss won't hold them back. We also help people to live independently. The advice and skills that we provide give people the freedom to live life on their own terms in their own way, sharing the same hopes and ambitions as anybody else and doing all the things that make them who they are. And we also help people to live well. Our experience and understanding can help people through the emotional and practical challenges that they face, introducing them to an inspiring community of people and giving them the support they need to be their best self. So in terms of our strategy, we really want to increase the number of people that we help from around 200,000 to over 500,000 people per year by 2023. Now, naturally, as we all know, the majority of that growth will come from digital. And we recognised early on that voice would be a critical channel for our audiences. Our research tells us that many people with sight loss have been early adopters of voice technology, and Alexa in particular. In fact, as Leah will tell you in a minute, when we speak to people and we say, do you have an Alexa at home? They'll say, no, I haven't got one, I've got 5 or I've got 9. So we know that that's clearly a good way for us to go in order to share our information and support services with people. And thanks to the People's Postcode Lottery, we've been able to develop a production-ready prototype and minimum viable product that show us that artificial intelligence can create an accessible and useful source of information for our audiences. Over to you, Leah.
Hi everyone, my name's Leah Hampton O'Neill. Thanks, Marie. I'm the technology business partner at Guide Dogs, and if you go to the next slide, what I want to talk to you about is accessibility. At Guide Dogs, accessibility, sorry about that, is at the forefront of everything that we do. Everything that we put out is as accessible as as far as we can try to do it. That's why when we started this project, we made sure that our team of assistive technology experts were working closely with AKQA to design an accessible experience from the beginning, so that we knew that it would be a successful product. We designed every detail with accessibility in mind, because we believe that everything that we do should be accessible, so that everyone would be able to access all the content that we produce, in particular our service user base. So what we made sure was that the user flows could be optimized for both Alexa, which, as you heard, is an extremely well established, accessible way for our service base to access information, as well as a web chatbot, where we focus on functionality and presentation, making sure that it worked for magnification and screen readers. We then made sure that we offered back the accessibility improvements to the AWS open source project and continue to collaborate on features for the roadmap, because we want to make sure that everyone is able to build an accessible world. And what we hope to show you as well in the demonstration is that building things in an accessible way, so that everyone can access information, will not affect your user interface or your user experience. So in the words of my colleague, if you go to the next slide, Phil Bowers, who is our assistive technology architect, being totally accessible for guide dog owners, Alexa is the perfect training tool and information giver. The Guide Dog app being developed is a real enhancement to the high standard of training already achieved by guide dog trainers. As the app is developed, its engagement with guide dog owners and supporters can only enhance the relationship with the organization and its important messages that need to be delivered in a quick and accessible way. So with this, I will now hand over to Paddy so he can walk you through our design.
Hi guys, great. Thanks for that, Leah. So obviously the first thing we had to do was look at all the different potential options we had out there to based on the feature sets that we had and the requirements for guide dogs. And it was actually quite hard to find an experience that was accessible and on budget, extendable, and met all those requirements. We knew there are plenty of great services out there, but when we found the AWS open source projects, we realized we could get really down to the metal access to all the code. We could customize it exactly how we wanted. And I think the best thing to do is probably start showing a demo. When I took it for a test drive, I remember just telling people I felt a bit like Mickey Mouse and Fantasia, like orchestrating all these different AWS services. And it's a really well thought out framework that allows you, as I say, to customize it how you want. So I think without further ado, let's just show you a demo and I'll walk through some of the stuff we've done. Okay, so hopefully you guys can all see the screen now. So the first thing to note, this is a version of the Guide Dogs website, and we have the chatbot down here. And when you click on it...
Hi, Patty. It's Taylor. Can't see the screen. Why don't you try one more time?
That would be a problem. Let me stop that again. Screen share.
But I think there's just a delay for it. It did come up just a second ago. Now it's gone again, so we maybe just need to wait a little bit longer.
Okay. Let me know if you can see it.
There it is. Perfect.
There it is. Beautiful.
Dialing in from London, so it might be a bit of a delay. Okay, great. So that's a chatbot that opens up and closes. But the top thing we had to do is make it completely accessible, which meant we had to really structure the content to make sure it was all tabbable through and you could get to any answer you wanted by using the tab keys. And that was a really important aspect of the development. You didn't even really need to put in use the input text unless you wanted a very specific answer quickly. So when you click through, in fact, let me just tighten that up a little. You might hear, there we go. We've also introduced these little audio keys. So when a message is sent or received, you get a slightly different audio message, which again is really important for people with visual problems to be able to know that the message has been sent or received. So we introduced that into the chatbot with a little button to toggle that on and off. And as you say, also for the screen readers, there's some hidden screen reader content. So as you move back and forwards, it will say, I say, chatbot says, or bot says, to help again inform the user which bit of content's come from where. So that was, we've integrated that into the site, and it's been a really useful way of navigating through. I think the other thing with the structured content is, as you can see, you can go through everything and start discovering the content. So it should be all very easy to navigate through and find. But if we show you the content in the content designer, this is the content designer that comes with the product when you fire up an instance. We've got all our question and answers here. And one thing I wanted to show is on Alexa, Alexa is a really important aspect of the project, probably maybe more so than the chatbot. So again, this was a great solution where Alexa was a built-in, ingrained part of the solution. But we also wanted to make it a best-in-class experience for Alexa and do all the things that an Alexa device might be known to do. One of them is, for instance, ordinals. So when you have these options here in the content, yes, no, or something else, we wanted to make sure people could answer with 1, 2, or 3. In fact, that's probably a bad example. It wasn't 1 or 2, but when we give a group of other answers, car safety, in Alexa, the best practices is for people to say 1 or 2, and that wasn't actually a non-trivial thing to implement. If we look at the content here, the team's introduced this great new concept called chaining rules with elicit responses. So you can listen out for a response, and if it's something you're listening out for, you can tell what answer to give. So in this case, we're using this elicit response called Q&A free text, which is a real game changer for the experience when this was put into the code base a few months ago. And as you can see here, these are the chaining rules, and it kind of means if the utterance is 1, use health to search against. If it's 2, use feeding. And if it's neither of those, just pass through the utterance to do a general search. And using some of these chaining rules in different ways has allowed us to make the bot a lot more reactive. In fact, I'll give you a quick demo on Alexa quickly. Hang on, let me turn this up. Alexa, open Guide Dogs.
Hello. Welcome to Guide Dogs. I am here to help you with any questions you have around working with or taking care of your dog. If you have a specific question, please ask me. Alternatively, do you want to hear information about 1. Working with your guide dog. 2. Caring for your guide dog.
1.
Okay. Excellent. Working with your dog should be an
Alexa,
enjoyable
stop.
experience for both of you. What areas of working with your dog are you interested in learning
So
more about?
hopefully you heard that. You also notice I've got Alexa speaking a bit faster, because one thing that we noticed with the service users for guide dogs is they often listen to things a lot quicker than most people would, because they're so used to using audio as a content provider. So that also allowed us to felt reassured we could have longer form format answers in there for them. But we had to structure the content slightly different for Alexa and for the chatbot. So that's another important part of when we were thinking about the UX and structuring the responses for the answers, that we wanted to make some more voice first and some be able to bold the text or write the text in a slightly different way so it worked better on the chatbot. The other thing we introduced is this concept of intros. Because the content is highly structured and we've got lots of topics with subtopics, sometimes we wanted to preference the answer with a bit of a preamble. So it might be legal, it might be just something that every topic we wanted to repeat, and we wanted to show it once a session rather than constantly doing it. And so rather than adding it to every single answer, we came up with this idea of a kind of partitioned Elasticsearch knowledge base. So anything that had the double underscores doesn't get searched by a normal query. It'll do a normal query on the answers, and then once it's found an answer, it'll do a secondary query looking for any intro text, and then it appends that to the answer. So a quick example of that is, for instance, if people are searching for vets, we might want to quickly explain to them the emergency 24-hour emergency hotline, but if they do it again, we just go straight to, we can cut out the intro bit and go straight to the options. So that's the kind of feature we're still playing with and figuring out how to work best. But that's another element that we've developed for the skill. So I think that is, just looking through there, I think that's a list of all the kind of features and the customizations I wanted to talk about for the demo. I'll just go back to the slides. Just waiting for them to come through. Yeah, brilliant. So just very quickly, what's really exciting is we've launched in soft beta at the moment, so it's only available on one page on the site at the moment, but we're very quickly going to be ramping that up with a load of more content. And this year we've got a site and roadmap of trying to introduce Amazon Pay, which encourages donations and helps manage dog food orders and things like that, as well as Amazon Connect, which I know the next presenters are going to go deep dive into, which is a really exciting feature to allow us to connect to real users. So there's an exciting roadmap coming forward. But what I really wanted to leave you with before I moved on is the idea of, if we go to the next slide, that when you get a real close collaboration between a client, an agency, and a technology provider like Amazon, we've been able to really work at speed and on budget to create a very bespoke solution that meets the service users, the clients' needs, markets really well. It's been a great collaboration, and I really just wanted to thank the AWS team for taking interest in the project, and hopefully when we realised we could help each other out with introducing new features back and forth, it's been a deeper collaboration than I feel that we could have achieved with other OEMs. So hopefully if it's a commercial project you've got or a non-profit, it's really useful. It's really good infrastructure to base your experiences and projects on. So without further ado, I think I'll hand you over to the next speakers at Oakland University. I think we've got Brad.
Yeah, let's do a quick sound check right quick. Everybody hear me okay? Sound check.
I can hear you, Brad. Yeah,
all right,
you sound
perfect.
good.
Yep. So again, my name is Brad Williams. I'm president of Oklahoma State University in Oklahoma City. To give just a little bit of context, we are a 2-year open admission campus, non-residential. Before I lead into my kind of other comments, I want to give a shout out to two people who are critical to the success of our project, and that's Mike Waddell and Dar Yasseri here at OSU Oklahoma City. But if you start our section of this presentation with a problem statement, it's as simple as this. We begin each academic term with staffing that can handle only a certain amount of work coming in, both walk-up traffic and phone and email. So what we realized as we launched into the beginning of our academic term each fall semester, we had probably 400 to 600 phone calls and emails that were simply unanswered because trying to balance staff handling of the walk-up traffic in addition to those other channels of communication, our staffing models found it very difficult to manage that. And so what we were looking for is then a solution that could help us automate answers to routine phone calls, those routine calls from prospects and students, such as what time do you open, what time is lunch, how do I get a transcript. Our goal was to automate that and then take that time savings and reinvest those minutes back into the relationship with the students. So I think over the next few slides, as you listen to our group of presenters, you're going to hear a very interesting case statement for why this type of technology is important, but also critical to helping students and prospective students and parents navigate interactions with the campus and community, and then give you as a campus the type of feedback in real time to understand truly the rhythm of the campus and the messages that students have and questions that they have to the campus as well. So with that, I'm turning it over to Matthew and Andrew, who will lead the next portion of our presentation.
Thank you, President Williams. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matthew, and I'm a technology liaison here at OSU OKC. We are beyond excited to give you a brief overview of our incredible journey to reimagine our entire business on behalf of our customers, our students. For today's session, we'll walk you through some of our obstacles and how we could leverage the powerful AWS cloud for custom-made solutions. We have placed some visual GIFs throughout our demonstration to give everyone some quick visualization. We will then wrap up our environment overview and then the tremendous results we were able to achieve in a brief time span. And a student's journey, typically from the initial interest to our campus and to getting admitted, involves a significant amount of interaction depending on the student type. And as you can see, we have the slide on the use case. A little bit of background on our daily operations. As it says, our department staff members would handle both phone calls and walk-in students and have coinciding peak periods. Many calls would go unanswered, requiring callbacks, around 50% daily. So many basic questions were asked and answered over the phone with zero IVR containment. And these type of inhibitors affected our ability to serve our customers, our students, and the experience that they deserve. Next slide, please, Taylor. And as a result, in 2019, when we took a deep dive, we could understand that we were getting all these high call volumes. The questions were repeated throughout the departments. We didn't have enough staff to answer the calls. We really did not have any kind of data on the metrics. We did not have any kind of data on the call volume, the frequency, the handle time, peak and off-peak hours, staff engagement, the customer wants and needs. I mean, it all boiled down to lack of a standard visibility on the voice of the customer. Who is our customer? Who are these student types that are kind of getting lost in this entire system? How does the customer behave when they don't find an answer in a particular listening post? What's the next step that they're trying to take? We had no idea. And now I would like to go ahead and introduce Andrew Wilmes to discuss the solutions that we have in place. Over to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Matthew. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Wilmes, and I work as a developer for OSU Oklahoma City. So to start this project, we decided to mitigate our high call volumes through way of Amazon Connect, and we addressed our problems of repeated questions by adopting Amazon Lex as our virtual assistant. Next slide, please. And then one more slide, please. So Amazon Connect is an omni-channel cloud contact center that is easy to use and allows us to deliver a more personalized call experience to our customers. By deploying Amazon Connect on top of our existing hard phone system, we were able to gain a new perspective into understanding our customers like never before. Next slide, please. So with our previous phone system, data such as call volume, average handle time, staff activity, and queue capacities were unknown to us. But with Amazon Connect, we had access to these metrics on day 0. Connect also allows us to utilize queues to create levels of priority when handling contacts, which can be instrumental when you need to load balance traffic across a department. Next slide, please. And because Amazon Connect can be updated in near real time, we can react to data in a timely manner by including important messages or additional menu options where necessary. This is a great feature when we need to inform our customers of important events occurring or any notable changes to our operations. For instance, recently, our city experienced snow and ice storms that shut down our campus operations overnight, and Amazon Connect's ability to be updated quickly and remotely helped us prepare our customers for this closure by placing messaging in both the QnABot and Amazon Connect. This eases our burden of worrying whether or not customers have received meaningful updates. Next slide, please. I'm going to pass this back to Matthew to talk a little bit about Lex and our QnABot.
Thank you, Andrew. With Connect in place, next slide, please. With Connect in place, we still had another aspect of our high call volume to solve, repeated questions. We noticed that many customers were calling with questions that were easy for our staff to answer, but questions that were ultimately contributing to long queues and slow service. To try and solve this, we launched QnABot on our website, as well as within our Amazon Connect instance as additional sources for information. Next slide, please. The QnABot uses Amazon Lex to provide conversational interface for frequently asked questions and can be easily integrated within Amazon Connect to handle voice conversations. Customer can interface with our bot on separate channels, retrieving answers to their question without ever having to talk to an actual person. Next slide, please. This chart shows the amount of conversations that takes place over the phone through Connect versus Lex Web UI. A majority of our customers choose to seek information from the QnABot rather over on the phone. It can be argued that without AWS services, our overall customer traffic would be cut in half. Next slide, please. Over to Andrew.
Thanks, Matthew. So all this new data that we're seeing is wonderful, but without a proper visualization tool, it's inefficient. Amazon's QnABot comes with an out-of-the-box dashboard called Kibana, and Kibana is fantastic, but it was the default visualizer, and we wanted to achieve a higher level of presentation, so we decided to go with Amazon QuickSight instead. Amazon QuickSight's a powerful business intelligence service that allows us to ask questions and receive answers from our data in the form of rich visualizations called dashboards. We built QuickSight dashboards for our Amazon Connect and QnABot services to gain a visual overview of our operations on a daily, monthly, or yearly basis. Next slide, please. QuickSight dashboards are very rich in features, but one of our favorite features is the word wall. The word wall display creates transparency and accountability with no human filtering necessary. It helps us answer the question, what words or topics are driving customers to our campus today? Next slide, please. Now, the word wall is just one component of many that comprises our automated daily report. When this report is automatically distributed each morning, leadership on our campus can quickly gain an overview of the health of our technology systems and gauge the heartbeat of our customers, our students. These dashboards are so valuable to us because, unlike before, now we're seeing the voice of our customer, and we can study the data to reveal how that voice changes throughout the academic year. Next slide, please. And I'll pass this back to Matt.
Thank you, Andrew. In the early stages of developing the QnABot, we noticed that our customers had many different ways of asking the same question. In fact, the same question could be asked 100 different ways, if not more. Because tuning the Elasticsearch engine with new content is a continuous task, we established a subject matter expert-based maintenance team of dedicated specialists from all departments through our campus to help collaborate in maintaining the answers for new questions. For instance, when the QnABot fails to return an answer to a customer, that missed utterance is captured and displayed in a table within the QuickSight dashboard. Next slide, please. The Elasticsearch engine that powers the QnABot works well by itself. However, this was not a perfect solution for us. For instance, what happens to the customer experience when the bot fails to return an answer? We want to reduce our development workload. We also want to avoid our customers leaving empty-handed for information. So we introduced Amazon Kendra as a fallback method for the QnABot. Next slide, please. Amazon Kendra. Amazon Kendra is an enterprise search powered by machine learning that allows us to create a repository of various types of documents stored within the S3 bucket. These documents can exist in different forms, such as PDF documents, HTML pages, to name a few. Some of the information contained in these documents may pertain to important organizational information, such as policies or specific programs. Documents are scanned and indexed so that the QnABot can deliver curated information from Kendra to the customer. And now over to Andrew.
Next slide, please. So Kendra is so advantageous for us because it uses natural language processing to better understand the customer's original intent, and it allows us to return portions of or entire documents to customers. Here you can see Kendra in action on the left and what the customer experience is like on the right without a Kendra-enabled QnABot. Next slide, please. And if you want to go to the next slide, I'll quickly recap some of the things we've covered. So we mitigated our problem of high call volume by deploying Amazon Connect within departments on campus. We deployed Amazon Lex and QnABot within Amazon Connect and on our website to answer repeated questions. We added Amazon Kendra to assist the QnABot in curating better answers for our customers, and we built powerful QuickSight dashboards to monitor our system and study our data. Next slide, please. The result of this effort is that customers can now interact with our services through separate channels, easing traffic on our phone lines and easing the spread of information. Kendra picks up the slack when the Elasticsearch engine fails to return an answer, and all of this incoming data is streamed to a secure location where it is then translated in order to be visualized. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, there's a collaborative relationship between all these services and the way that they serve each other. You only pay for what you use within the AWS ecosystem, which helps us work within a budget. We can scale up or down easily depending on workloads, and we retain control over our data, which gives us flexibility when producing key performance indicators. Our newly gained business insights allow us to visualize our customers' wants and needs and produce decisions that are driven by data. These results would not have been possible without the expertise and guidance of the individuals at AWS. And I really just want to take a second to thank them, and our team is eternally grateful. And at this time, I'm going to pass the presentation back over to Bob Potterfeld to discuss QnABot further.
Hi, it's great to be here. Welcome, everyone. Those are some examples that we just saw from two customers I've worked with in terms of implementing QnABot and integrating into Connect and Lex Web UI. So I want to take this opportunity now to kind of dive deep into what is QnABot, what are its features, what's its architecture, how do you get started using this open source solution. So next slide, please. So you've heard from both these customers that they have certain unique business challenges. Things like staff loading, kind of the number of users that they want to handle, certainly needs to be automated as much as possible. Things like off-hours support. How do I provide information to users when my staff isn't available? We heard about diverse channels that they want to address. So Alexa, phone, web, perhaps SMS or text messaging. So a lot of different customers explore or try and set up solutions that are working and have to work with multiple channels. Time to market is usually a critical factor. So how can we get a solution to market quickly? What sort of packages, what sort of technologies can we use to drive that time to market? Talked about different content that one might want to make available through a bot infrastructure. Oklahoma State, OSU, OKC was looking at how do I integrate different types of PDF files in terms of response to questions that the bot needs to answer. Reports and analytics are a significant factor as well. So how do I know if the system is working right? How do I continually improve or train the system? So these are all things that our customers are seeing are critical to address when they are building out a solution. Next slide, please. So what is QnABot? It is an open source project. It is available to anyone through a GitHub repository. It was started back in 2017 by a team in professional services, worldwide public sector, and we were addressing needs of our public sector customers to handle information and provide answers to questions. So over time, this vision has been established where we're delivering chat-style conversations over different types of channels, so omni-channel, using the best AWS search and analytics services that we can bring out in this solution. So it encompasses lots of different AWS services, and again, it's trying to power those chat-style conversations through as many channels as it can address. So it uses and deploys within Amazon Lex. It takes rich advantage of Kendra, integrates well with Amazon Alexa, and we have integration with Connect that is now wizard-driven to bring up a quick Q&A facility within an existing Connect instance. So we have two ways to get started quickly looking at the solution. One is through the first URL, which takes you to a blog post on the QnABot. And the second is to the GitHub repo that has access to all the source code that comprises the solution. So next slide, please. So what is QnABot? And it's a solution. It's an open source project. But it has a room with many doors is how we like to describe it. So if you think about from the bottom of the picture up, we have lots of different types of users that want to get answers to questions via Alexa voice service, or via Amazon Lex, or via Amazon Connect, different services within AWS. At the top of we are going to switch off in speakers. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you, Bob.
Sorry about that. Sometimes my Bluetooth goes off and on, as is common in virtual presentations nowadays. Anyway, at the top of the picture are a set of stakeholders, users, personas that are going to interact with the system. So stakeholders that want to understand how the system is performing, is it meeting requirements for their business, their objectives. Persona for content designers that are people who are managing the content, managing the facility that is QnABot. And the content reviewers. These are people that are reviewing content, approving, watching changes progress through the system, perhaps from a development to a production environment. In the center is QnABot, and it's the guts of the system. It uses three primary services, so Amazon Elasticsearch, Amazon Kendra, and AWS Lambda. So it's entirely serverless except for the Elasticsearch clusters that get deployed. The rest of it, though, is again serverless. At the top end is what we call the designer UI, and you saw Patty demonstrating that. It's an administrative interface that allows the content to be curated, tested, deployed within the infrastructure. So there's a full UI that comes along with this open source solution. Let's go on to the next slide. So some of the important differentiators or features that are important that distinguish QnABot. It's a one-click deployment using AWS CloudFormation. So there's a single click of the button from the blog post, and you can have a QnABot up and running in roughly 40-45 minutes. It's a tool set that allows different output or different types of channels to be supported. So that omni-channel experience, so Markdown and SSML, as well as voice and text, and that's all configured within the designer. There's a fairly rich analytics dashboard, that is the Kibana dashboard that Andrew mentioned, but it's also very feasible to integrate or create a higher level dashboard using QuickSight, as Andrew had mentioned in the Oklahoma State case. It's very easy to customize this for different use cases, a simple FAQ, different types of decision trees, a survey type approach, or a use case, or you're trying to recommend some outcome for a user, those are all implementable within QnABot. Probably the most important feature at the bottom is no coding is needed. So you can create this solution and get started without having to write code.
Baby.
Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. So this is a lower level architecture picture, a down one from the kind of the description of all the services and interaction. But this is showing what is deployed with QnABot after clicking that button. So if I start at the bottom, again, there's an Elasticsearch cluster. It's provisioned that manages what we call the curated content. There's a set of lambdas that provide both fulfillment and management through the content designer. So those are serverless functions that are orchestrating the content and exercising fulfillment for that content. And by fulfillment, that's if a user's invoking via web or via Alexa, via voice, a question, those fulfillment handlers will be invoked to come up with the best answer for the channel that user was engaged in. So there's a set of serverless infrastructure in the middle. We, again, integrate with Alexa Skills, Amazon Lex, Poly, to provide that integration with the various clients. There's an API gateway along with Amazon Cognito that is supplying the content designer interface. That's the portion that is managing the content in this infrastructure. There's a companion open source project called the Lex Web UI. That's what Patty had based his work on, that provides an integration through Amazon Lex to exercise the QnABot. The solution architecture also uses Amazon Kendra quite heavily. The example is using it as a fallback, but we also use it integrated with Kendra's NLP to find answers to questions much more rapidly. The solution also uses Amazon Comprehend, and it can evaluate users' response for their sentiment. We also utilize Amazon Translate. So if we want to enable multi-language support reasonably quickly within the infrastructure, we can enable the use of Translate to interpret a user's question, convert to English, do a lookup, convert the response back to the user's language, and serve that up. So there's an initial use of multi-language support that's enabled by using Translate. We also utilize Kinesis to stream metric output into an S3 bucket. So that's just a kind of a picture of what is deployed with this solution in terms of what you'll see in an account. So let's go on to the next slide. So now you're asking, how do we extend this system, right? How do we answer dynamic questions? So examples here would be like, what time does your office close today? Or are you open today? Or another example, when have the last solar flares occurred, if you wanted to query something at NASA. So those are dynamic answers. They're not static. And we use Lambda to extend QnABot to answer those questions. And we call those Lambda hooks. So within each question that's configured, we can call out to a Lambda, and that Lambda can augment the answer with the dynamic content. Go on to the next slide. And Patty had mentioned this feature that we call illicit response bots and conditional chaining. Sometimes, so in this case, sometimes you want the bot to ask the user a question. So what is your phone number, or where do you live? What's your age? I need your PIN. And we have the facility in QnABot to elicit those responses from the user, again, multi-channel, and allow the flow, the sequence of questions being resolved to chain against those answers. So if I was doing kind of a movie recommendation question, I might want to know the age of the user so that I could recommend a certain genre of movie or a certain movie within a genre. So we can ask those questions of the user, capture their response, and then chain to an appropriate answer. So very useful for decision trees. We'll go on to the next slide. So again, conditional chaining is another feature within QnABot that lets us implement decision trees. So based on a user's answers, we can jump around in the set of questions. We would call this a flow of questions, and we can jump to a different question based on a prior answer from the user. We use a simple JavaScript-like syntax, or we can do complex decision-making within a Lambda function itself. So if we have, again, a decision tree of maybe 10 to 20 questions, we can chain those questions appropriately based on prior answers from the user. On to the next slide. So one of the neat features we've integrated or released recently is integration with two new Amazon services. So one being Kendra, and we saw the use case within OSU OKC for improving the question lookup. So we can take advantage of Kendra's NLP and FAQ facility simply by integrating an index into QnABot. So if we set up a Kendra index, we configure that into QnABot, and we can now synchronize our questions into Kendra and let Kendra handle some of the heavy lifting to search for an answer based on the user's question. That's one use case for Kendra. A second is the fallback mechanism. So in a lot of cases, we can have curated content that's very specific and has an answer for a user that is curated, is accurate. But perhaps we don't have a good answer for the user. We can turn to that same Kendra index and do an enterprise search and look for documents in Kendra that match that user's question. We take those answers, we synthesize those into the channel that's being used. So if it's Markdown or over a web channel, we can facilitate rich output using Markdown and display links back to the original document in Kendra. If it's voice, we can synthesize into an SSML or sound-based or voice-based response. So again, via the QnABot, we can make that really tight integration with Kendra to provide those searches and provide those responses. On the right-hand side of the slide, we're using Amazon Connect to facilitate those questions. And this is something that OSU OKC has been doing as well. And we have a wizard in QnABot in the designer UI that makes this integration a snap. So you execute the wizard and it emits a contact flow that you can install that's pre-wired and ready to run in Kendra, in Connect to answer and supply output to a voice conversation in Connect. So really tight integration there makes it extremely simple to get started, and having a Connect instance service questions using QnABot. Move on to the next slide. How do we get started? So I mentioned that we have a blog post, and if anyone's been to that blog post, that's the www.amazon.com/QnABot, and you'll find the solution deployable over 4 regions. So Northern Virginia, Oregon, Ireland, and Sydney regions. And it's a very simple set of parameters. You get to specify the number of nodes you'd like in your Elasticsearch cluster. We typically find 2 to be sufficient. You get an email address that will be sent a password and login information to the content designer. You get to specify whether it should be encrypted at rest or not, and whether the bot interface should be public or private. So if we want to deploy this internally in an organization, we can restrict access to the bot infrastructure. So again, using the one-click deploy, QnABot will spin up all the services that you saw there. Patty mentioned that he was amazed at the orchestration for that level of services that he was going to be using all through this deploy and through the designer user interface. Again, I have the open source repo there listed, AWS AI QnABot in GitHub under AWS samples. It's nice to get pull requests and make improvements into the bot infrastructure. Patty's been one of our biggest supporters, and we love to get his contributions back. So there's a lot of work and activity that happen within the open source community. We also have a workshop that would take you through using a majority of the features in QnABot. We've done this workshop at past reInvents. That's where it's 2019 folder name there. Again, in GitHub, it'll actually take you through exercises deploying the web user interface onto a web page, or deploying into Connect, or doing the integration with Kendra, or perhaps with Twilio through a text messaging interface. So the workshop is a series of exercises that one can use deploying QnABot and then experimenting with different channels within the infrastructure. Alrighty, next slide. So I think we have 10 minutes left in the session, and certainly am open to questions that others might have. I think we're going to post those into the Chime window, and we will handle those questions as best we can. The first question I think that came through was, when will Kendra and Lex be FedRAMP compliant? I don't have the immediate answer to that off the top of my head. We'll certainly do a quick lookup. There is a service page that will indicate the compliance status for both of those services, and we can take a look there and do some research and try and provide that feedback to you. So next question is, what languages do Kendra and Lex support? On the Lex side, there's a number that can be supported through Lex via configuration on the Lex bot. QnABot at this point supports English when it's first deployed. We are looking at ways to extend that and make it easier to deploy QnABot such that it can support natively languages other than English. But at the moment, it is English support for QnABot.
Bob, you might want to talk about the dynamic translation for QnABot as well.
Sure, I touched on that briefly, but yeah. So within QnABot, there's the ability to configure through its settings to do auto translation. And the users could type in English through a web interface, or type in, say, French, and the infrastructure will detect that its user input is coming in the French locale. It'll do a translation to English and do the lookup in the curated content using English. The response that's been configured would be in English, but since we know the user has requested the input in French, we would do that conversion back to French, and using Amazon Translate and provide that back to them. So it's not necessarily a perfect solution based on that translation, but it's an initial start at using multilingual multi-language support. We also have the ability directly in the curated content to configure the locale of an answer. So if you know the bot's going to be serviced in French, you could configure a response in French, and the bot would pick that response to provide to the user. So a couple ways to get started on multi-language support. What about
Thank you, Bob. We have a couple of minutes left, so if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We can stay on until 3 p.m. Eastern time, so please feel free to drop any other additional questions.
Yeah, this is Brad at OSU OKC while the additional questions are coming in. One of the powerful elements of this from a functional operational standpoint is the ability to monitor a word wall daily and identify pain points or system pressures that we may not be aware of or know about, but can monitor that word wall and then either front load messaging on our campus website or look into processes that may be a signal flare on that word wall in high level occurrences. And so again, I can't overstate the importance of a tool like the word wall on operational guidance from at least a university administrative perspective.
I'd second that too, from a guide dog's point of view. It's really important seeing what answers aren't getting, what questions aren't getting answered, and sometimes you actually have the answers, so you just need to add some variation and variance to the questions, and it really helps.
And you'd much rather monitor that and then address it than it show up on some type of web review that you maybe have no control over. So that gives you a way to get out in front of a system-wide bottleneck or issue that may be preventing someone from having a successful interaction with a process before that same person vents their frustrations publicly on a web review.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And there's another question that came through. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Oh, I was going to see if either Patty or Brad would want to jump into that question about how to build an effective business case to get buy-in for a solution like this.
Yeah, I can lead off with that. It would depend on the type of and context of that business, but from my seat, what I felt like I lacked as a university president was the ability to know in real time what the questions were coming in at different times. So in higher education, there's different stages of financial aid that a student has to kind of work through. And so if we see high rates of financial aid references on the word wall, we know we have some issues to work through. And again, what you have to have is an organizational culture that is based on continuous improvement, that looks at those items on a word wall and then is curious enough to dig into those. Once you start looking at that, then the business case begins to unfold and sell itself because the overall goal is the ultimate customer experience and satisfaction versus some type of passive response to someone that may just be frustrated by your system. So, Patty?
Yes. Yeah, thanks. It's a great question. What's brilliant about the Q&A chatbot is it's a whole tool set and with omni-channel support. So it pretty much covers most use cases, and its integration with Alexa is quite interesting because it means you don't have to write a custom Alexa skill and constantly resubmit it with updated questions. The way you can keep the content dynamic is really useful. So hopefully obviously COVID is a big use case now for pushing these sort of digital services, but there's a lot of variety and options out there. So I would encourage everyone to look at the market, do their own market researches, and come to the conclusions you want. But I just think since using it, it's been a brilliant start to use in a variety of different cases, and we'll be pushing it to our clients along with a slew of other services that we use as well. But hopefully you'll be able to start seeing how to build a use case for it. I think you need to look at the requirements you have for your clients first and always start there. And the Connect support has been a real game changer that they've just released to use phone sensors. So it's a pretty blanket solution that covers everything I can think of we need at the moment.
I just want to add just a quick piece to that. One concern we had when we had launched our initiative was our need to train the public to the bot, to understand it and to be open to it. But when you think about that, most of the public is already interacting in this way as they interact with their public utility company or payment systems for their other bill related things just personally. This is not something new that we had to train them to, because they've already interacted with similar formats in other areas of their life. And so that's a lesson learned that I had, just kind of that eye-opening that the public is getting warmer and warmer to this type of technology, and so to integrate it into our systems is a natural step.
I'd also just mention what's brilliant about this is you can get up and running really quickly in experiments. So as a business case, we've started with an MVP and we've built on top of it as we go. So it's an incremental development pipeline. So you've got the ability to start playing around with it, experimenting with it quickly and early, and that also helps get buy-in from the different organizations. And we've noticed that as well with guide dogs. Is you start small and simple, identify a very specific use case. In our case, it was just the manual for dog trainers for people who are just starting on the journey with a guide dog. But there's a lot of other elements we could be looking at, which we will be in the future. So it's getting a laser focus to start somewhere and build the business proposition up as you go.
Perfect. We're right at time. I would just like to thank everyone for joining us today. And thank you to all of our speakers, Patty, Marie, Leah, Brad, Matthew, Andrew, and of course, Bob. And thank you again for everyone who joined us. Have an excellent rest of your day.
Thank you.